John, thank you for presenting the driver. So I hope that everyone can see it, can read it either. So this would actually, the only current version that you probably have access to is the one on the screen here. And so the intent here is that we have consent from the whole group that this is a relevant, good enough for now, safe enough expression of what we feel is happening, what's needed to then address it related to onboarding. So just at the moment, I'm just going to go straight for a check for consent. I don't see everyone's cameras on, so but for those who are, and those who aren't used to this, it's a good opportunity for me to bring in the hand signals, which aren't strictly an S3 pattern, but they're really handy for groups to quickly give their response. And there's 3 of them, and one is this, and it says, "I have no objections and I'm not concerned," or "I consent." There is, your hand is flat, but with the palm down, and it's like, and it basically means I have a concern. It's not strong enough that this needs to stop this from going ahead. So I'm just going to hold on to that. And if there's time after we make the decision, we can bring that up. The third hand signal is palm up. And this means I have an objection. Specifically, what that means is I can either see a way how I could improve this right now, or how something about this decision could cause harm to us or to our drivers or to our ability to deliver value. And we have our hand up like this because it means it's a gift. It's my gift of insight, wisdom that I believe may help us to evolve a better decision. So that's how those work. So I'm going to ask right now, check for consent. So show me your hand signal, and if you can't put your camera on, then just tell us. Okay, hand signals on 3. 1, 2, 3. Robin? No, so tell me what's up for you. Are you not sure?
Not sure how to make it show. There.
Okay. You can use your real hand.
Real
Use
hand.
your real hand.
Real hands.
We use real hands.
Here,
Okay.
how about
Oh, right.
in front of my face.
Where's the camera? It was just out of frame. Okay, so I see that Sarah has a concern. Okay. Mark, I didn't see what your response was.
Yeah, I'm not going to be doing any physical participation. I'll just be listening because I'm
okay, just listening. Okay, very good.
Thanks.
Then let's take a moment and celebrate because we made our first agreement in this call. So awesome.
Wow.
Now I gave 10 minutes for this call. We're only at 7 minutes 40, so we have time. So I'm going to invite Sarah to share your concern. We can note that.
Just as an English teacher, the only thing that is bothering me is lead their passion. That's not that's it. That's just an awkward wording. I love the wording, but it's awkward and I don't know what it means.
To lead their area of passion.
Or lead with their passion, or I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. Just that it's an awkward wording.
Yeah.
Okay.
Occasionally we'll actually use awkward wording to sort of draw attention to it. The other example was innovation thinking that we used in the primer. So, but if it really interferes with the comprehension, then we can potentially change that easily.
You know, I just want to say that I'm finding a lot with this sociocracy, and even in the ways that you guys speak and craft sentences when you're speaking, that it's in many ways a different type of language, and it's using the English language in a way I'm not familiar with. So I'm fine with lead their passion. I'm fine with leaving it. It just I almost like it in that way.
Yeah, I think there's a certain amount of neuro-linguistic programming going on. Which is fine. It's part of building a different way of thinking and being, right?
Yeah. Full disclosure, lead their passion is not an S3 pattern. So that's John. Go talk to John. That's
John pattern.
Okay.
Yeah, then there's John's brain, but
Like innovation versus innovative thinking. It's a John pattern.
Yes. Can I make
Oh,
one
all right.
comment on it? A clarification comment, Michael?
Sure, there's 30 seconds.
Yeah, the one area here which I think could be fleshed out a bit more is when we say this will lead to confusion and demotivate volunteers, a significant risk. I think there's actually a lot more risks than that, and potentially fleshing that out might influence some of the way we're thinking. But I thought at this level, just going with that was potentially sufficient. But as we move forward, if people think of other risks that are relevant to the solution, then feel free to bring those up.
I think they will come up. Anyway, that's time for this part.
Yep.
So we're going to move on to questions about the driver. So we're deepening our understanding of the driver. So this is going to be a round, and we may do a couple. And if you don't have anything when it comes to you, you can pass and then just indicate if you do have something. We'll get you on the next round. And so we're asking questions specifically to get more information to make sure we understand. We've already said it's good enough for now, safe enough to proceed. But so John, this probably is the first opportunity where people can be asking these probing questions to pull out more information. What I'm going to, their points are listed right here, but we're going to be very, very disciplined to consider what questions we're asking and avoid moving ahead in the process. So solutions, for example, this is not a solution space yet. We're still just understanding this tension between what is and what we think could be. I'm going to actually invite Robin to start, and then Sarah will go next.
Well, I don't know if this is relevant to the project itself. Maybe it belongs further down in the process, but I mean, I've talked to John about this before. I used to watch bridge online, and you can just sort of watch people playing as opposed to playing yourself. And so I would like some kind of opportunity like that for people to just sort of be a voyeur, so to speak, rather than getting into it. But again, I don't know this whole process well enough to be able to say, yeah, this fits here. No, it's not going to fit there. It's going to fit somewhere else.
Okay, that sounds to me like it's getting into the solution space, how this is actually going to happen and details around that. So I'm going to say that actually doesn't qualify in this stage.
Very good.
So
I'm not offended.
Anne, I have you next. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a question, and this is actually something Sarah also asked, and what we mean by customized in point number 3. Yeah.
Okay, so do you think this captures it, this note here? What do we mean by customized in 3? Great. Yeah. Sarah, I'm not sure if I change order, but the windows changed on me, so because cameras keep coming on and off, and anyway.
I was really looking forward to going second.
Okay, so you're next. Let's go with you.
Yeah, I had that question for sure earlier, and a question that I have is around number 2. Okay. So complexity and scale in number 2 is framed in a negative way because confusion and demotivation of volunteers is negative for sure. And that definitely happened to me. I've tried to jump into Blue Ocean twice and I just stopped because I found it confusing. And so the other question, I think I have 2 questions actually, that do we really want to consider this complexity and scale in that negative light? That maybe the fact that it's complex and giant scale in terms of what its potential is can be seen as positive as long as it's done right. And so I like the driver that way. It's just a question there. And then significant risk. I think it's the same question that that John has expressed and that the woman before me, I'm sorry, I forget your name, just expressed. Robin. Is what do we mean by significant risk?
Okay.
And what do we mean by circle? That's another one, a third question. What does circle mean? I don't even know what that word means.
Okay. All right, I'll add that. We did Anne, so John and then Andrew. You probably don't have any questions, but you have the floor if you want them.
Well, for mine, I would I would actually recommend putting Robin's point in, which is how does the question 3 address safety? Is how I interpreted the question. Because in number 1, we specified that part of the current situation is to be aware of having a safe environment, and I don't think it's really adequately brought out in number 3.
Okay.
Is it safety or is it
I'm just gonna
accessibility?
I'm just going to do a time check here. So we're over time on this one. So I'm just going to go to Andrew. Do you have any questions to help clarify what's here? Or that you think would help clarify to understand the driver?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's clearly some tension over, you know, the idea of safety and allowing people to get a sense of what's happening before diving in and that sort of thing. On point 2, I know we're not wordsmithing, but it might help clarify if we rework that sentence a little bit, because I think my sense of what was being gotten at there is that there is a significant risk that increasing complexity and scale of blue ocean can lead to confusion, which can demotivate. You know, there's dependencies there, but what's trying to be highlighted there is that this driver needs to respond to a risk of the whole thing being off-putting rather than welcoming. But in general, I'm fine. I kind of I get this, but then I've been up to my ears in a lot of this for a while, and I appreciate that others are not. So.
Ask a question, Michael.
Thanks. Not just hang on a second,
Go,
please.
yeah.
I just want to make sure that answer questions if we can. So this is what I'd like to do in as quickly as we can. But John, what was your question first?
One of the things I'm feeling, and I just want to verify this, is that we should be distinguishing between sort of first order problems and second order problems, because there's a lot of things that if I was to be comprehensive, we had to say, well, we can include this, and this, and this. But my feeling is that we should be making decisions between things that are high order enough that we would include them versus things that we can say, okay, that's implied, or we don't need to worry about that at this level. Do you say that's fair? And if so, how do you make that distinction?
Well, for example, on that one, the last question, I get a sense that Andrew's pointed out that the intention in that statement is implied and fairly well grasped by those present here. I don't think we would have consented to this if that hadn't been the case. Is that fair enough to say, Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From my point of view, yeah.
So there's an example of how I would do that.
Okay. Yeah, no, I liked Andrew's point. I'm just mentally, I'm trying to sort through what's worth bringing up and including versus what's not. So.
And that's part of the artful process, and that's what I'm listening for as well. And because we're all not, this is new for everyone here. Anyway, so what I'd like to do quickly is let's just, if we can, do we have any answers that we can put down right now? So what do we mean by customized? I think that's probably a really important clarification.
Yeah, that one, Anne answered the question perfectly.
Okay.
So the customization is for both sides, both lenses. So members have specific needs and specific skill sets that could require very, very different approaches. People might have English as a second language. People might have certain sensitivities. We want to try to be sensitive to, and very different priorities and very different amounts of time commitments. We want to be sensitive to their side. And
can I just interrupt you? What do you mean by both lenses? One sentence.
Member versus circles.
Okay.
Which we'll also have to define.
Yes.
Yes, right. And so circles have extremely different requirements for onboarding. Some of them will be like, we don't care, we're huge, give us anyone who's interested. Others, small groups, highly specialized. We only want certain individuals who have very specific commitment skills and motivations, and we want
Very
a
good.
thorough process to have them in.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
So we're on to increased, this question about increased complexity.
Yes.
The considerations about
Yep.
negative.
Yes. So my answer for this, which might not be sufficient, but is I think like we sort of tend to embrace complexity scale. I don't think we see it as being, I don't think we see it in a negative light, but because drivers focus on tensions, as a problem statement, we're focused on solving the negative part, right? So it's not that we're seeing it as being negative. We're concerned about mitigating the negative part of it. Sufficient? Okay, fantastic.
Sarah, your hand's up. What's on your mind?
I think John really just addressed it. And for me, it's it kind of circles around the word will. Because it's not a future process. For me, it's already a past process. Like I did jump into Blue Ocean. It was confusing and I was demotivated because it was so complex. And so, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah,
Okay.
make it present. Sarah's totally right. Right.
Cool.
And scale leads. If you replace will lead to leads, I think that's.
Or I would. I mean, if you're gonna
Go ahead.
wordsmith that, I would
We're
say
not.
I would say it's not. It's will is definitive. I think what we're highlighting there is that it can.
So I'm just going to
The
jump in
risk.
right now.
Right.
I know this
That's
is
my
like,
understanding.
we could keep talking about this, but we've already consented. So I'm going to try to be a little bit ruthless here because I know how much time we have left and what we need, and we're already over by 6 minutes.
Let's go.
So,
Rock
quickly,
and roll.
Who wants to take this? What's a circle?
Go for it, Mike. I would.
Okay, circle in the context of sociocracy is like a team. It's a group of individuals who come together and have roles within a given area of influence called a domain in sociocracy lingo. So a team, like the mission circle is this team of people who came together to sort of call Blue Ocean into being. What are we here for? That was sort of the purpose of the mission circle. And an onboarding circle would be a team that has the responsibility of, we'll have to define that, but onboarding. So that's what I mean by circle.
And I would
Sign me up.
Yeah, I would compare old to new. The old version is people just get together at work. If you think about VCG, when we start calling it the VCG circle, we're sort of implying that you're starting to use sociocratic practices and working as a circle.
I think that's probably plenty of clarity for this one. I get a sense that we've really leaned into this a bit, and I'm getting a sense that the group is pretty fluent in what is here in terms of what's happening and what's needed. So we pause here. Maybe this is you, maybe you're not as, the grimace isn't there, but I want everyone to actually take a breath and do it in your own time, because we're recognizing is transition. We've been in the problem space. We've been thinking about, so what is this challenge and how will we describe it? And what does it feel like? What does it look like from different angles? Now we are intentionally moving into solution space. Stop, reset, start. Okay, so more questions. But this time we are on recording considerations. So either information gathering questions or generative questions. And so the difference being information gathering questions only have a single possible answer, and they're seeking data. They're seeking information about what is. And often what that is figuring out what are the constraints? What is the context of this? What are things that won't change or can't, I won't say won't change, but just are. And then the other type of question are generative, meaning many possible answers. They're thinking about possibility, future, blue sky. So an example of, what is would be more likely on the track to fit to asking for information gathering. Like, what is the rule around, or who is responsible for, who has insight on, those are going to have one answer, most likely. Whereas a really great question as an example of generative is, what is the simplest thing we could do to address ... And then you start to realize, oh, wow, that could be lots of things, but it's not going to be everything. And lastly, if in doubt, we test it for information gathering first. So if you have a question, you're like, I don't know whether this is information gathering or generative. We'll say, okay, well, let's put it in the information gathering pile. So the way I'm going to do this is, I think it's just going to be popcorn. So meaning as ideas come up, share them. And what I'll do is I'll record them. And if you think you know, or you definitely know if it's a generative or an information gathering, let me know, and then I can put it on the respective sticky. And Sarah?
Great. I think I have a generative question, and it's around something that John said a few minutes ago.
So remember, we're in the solution space, and we're thinking about the driver. And so we've asked questions about to understand it better, but now we're starting to think about, okay, so in addressing this, what's coming up? Got John?
Okay, mic check, is this working?
Yeah.
Good. How do we reinforce green values and blue ocean values through the process?
How do we or how will we?
How will we?
So the next step is, this card is just for the information. So we're on to answer information gathering questions. So this is now where we're only looking at this section here. And we're going to go just, again, sort of popcorn. If anyone, like, let's see, one at a time, do we know the answers? And anything that we do know, we can put that information down. So first question, where do we host basic definitions? Do we?
I can.
Go ahead, Andrew.
We're starting to, because on Decidim, where we can add various page sets like FAQs and so on, and that could certainly include, a page of definitions.
Right, so the Decidim help docs?
Yeah.
Although part of this goes to my question about members' communication styles, right? That might not be sufficient in itself.
Right, but this is, I'd say that is the answer to that question.
As of
right
now,
now,
yeah.
that is what we do.
Yeah.
And maybe the reality is there's going to be another question that needs to be asked, which is how should we?
Right.
What is the
Fair.
simplest? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we get to the next level of this, there's going to be kind of a grid of, what's desired versus what's easiest to deliver at this point, right? And we're gonna have to do some triangulation on that.
So I'm going to go into the next one. What do members want out of this blue ocean? Can we answer that? Do we know an answer to that?
I think we have a guess, but I think, is that sufficient? Is our estimate sufficient? What I'm getting at here is it probably would be useful to actually query people as we move forward and say, is this what you want? Are we actually delivering what people need?
I'm going to call that good enough for now, safe enough to proceed. Any objections to this? We've got answers to all of these. And that would be, so what have we done? We've had dynamic discussion. That was allowed. Okay. This step increases knowledge of the constraints. I think that I, for one, benefited from that. Yep. I think that the tuners are going to, and more on tuners later. High-level basic info might be useful. I think we've pretty much satisfied that for now. So now we're on to prioritize considerations. So now we have just 5 minutes. And as a group, we're going to put into priority order all of our consideration questions. Then I'm just going to paste them all here in a pile. And then we're just going to drag them. So far left means most important. And in fact, in this box, it's like critical must deal with. You know, project will fall apart if we don't address these. And then least priority on the right. And that's how that works. So again, popcorn style, just tell me what you think I should move, and then I'll move it. And then if there is dispute, then we can deal with that afterwards. But
One question.
what of these are like absolutely must address?
I was going to suggest that we start looking for lowest priority, because a lot of these are, for me, there's a lot of high priority stuff. So it's
okay. Let's pick off the weaklings.
I'll put safety. Let's do high because.
Okay, I think safety is.
Yeah.
That's because of the current context. Safety is.
Yep.
Massively important.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what will our training process look like is most important, because if we don't have that,
yeah,
we're not going to have people.
Support that.
Okay.
See, I see that how members determine their own path as being quite closely linked to the training process and so on.
So do I.
Partly because I am very concerned that we don't end up creating a training or onboarding process that is too restrictively gating.
Yes.
Okay, agreed.
I second that motion.
Yeah. Okay. We don't need to, go to pieces over exactly the correct order of these. They're all going to get addressed. It's just to sort of signal to ourselves and to the tuners that, a sense of, and if they all end up being most urgent, fine. At least we're sensitive to what's needed.
Okay, how about you group the top two left ones, the ones that unite with the, how we'll get them to show up the front door, how we communicate our intentions, and leave that as medium, because I think that those are going to be quite solvable and a little bit later.
Okay.
Plus, you want to get it right before you invite
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding. Same with how circles communicate their requirement. That's sort of in between medium and high for me, but you can leave it.
Okay, so yes, here we are. Collect ideas that offer complete solutions. So we're probably going to run out the clock here instead of getting to tuners, unfortunately, unless people are comfortable going over. But right now, we are taking some time to actually float possible solutions that address these considerations.
Can I go first?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got, is Mark still on this call?
Seems to be.
Okay, so we've got the constitutional working group, right? We've got the constitutional working group, and we've tried to use sociocracy within a smaller pathways group as best we could to create a drive.
Well, one idea I think that should be addressed is if you want to do sociocracy, that you make it some kind of prerequisite before you join a circle. And maybe you have a recorded video or something. I think it would be easier for the circle to navigate if everyone has at least the basic understanding of what you guys are trying to accomplish in a meeting.
Love it.
I very much agree with that. And if I could expand on that, I think a lot of these meetings are sort of training in the middle of a meeting, which is necessary for this group to get things going. But when it comes to the onboarding, there should be separate sessions, just explaining sociocracy and different roles, different terminology and all that. Then there's a separate meeting where we actually implement it.
I'm going to say we've got it. We could keep going forever, but this is okay. Last call, final.
Important thing. Bilingual.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. My cue for that was you, Robin, when you said it's another language.
Bilingual, tech and non-tech.
Right. Or as Mark McKenzie put it, normal people. We also have to,
Right.
right.
You should be able to click on the website, and then dummies like me can have this version, and tech people, you click on another website and you get that version.
Okay.
Well, just to put some context on that, Robin, there was a discussion amongst the geeks in the room at one point of incorporating a Dungeons and Dragons style character levels point system. So, you know, we ditched that idea.
Well, that's positive.
Okay. We're moving on.
Okay.
This has
I
been
never
really
liked
good.
that game. Michael, before you wrap up, just so I understand the process, are you identifying tuners in this meeting?
That's the next step. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm calling it that we have a good enough for now, safe enough to proceed, and I'm also recognizing that how the scope of the driver, how the driver sets the scope of the solution space, how that will actually affect how much time really is needed for this stage, because this is a really juicy stage, and it's taken way more time than we had allotted, but I think it was necessary. I don't think we're at good enough for now, safe enough until. Anyway, so as I said before, the tuners part, this is where all the work that we've done up until this point is now taken over by 2 or 3 people who have the role and responsibility of using all that information that we generate up to this point to come up with a first good enough for now, safe enough to try draft proposal. And I want to stress also that to get out of the practice of seeking perfection and thinking, okay, this is the one shot and all this work that's been done up to this point, these tuners better get this right. All the tuners are doing is coming up with a way that we could take the next step forward, because part of working according to sociocratic or S3 methods or ways is that we're constantly experimenting, testing things out, trying things, evaluating, adjusting, moving forward. So we try to avoid perfection at all costs because it slows things down, and it's not in keeping with the spirit of S3 and the principles of S3, particularly what's what I'm thinking of? Empiricism. Anyway, so how we do this is we start by asking, who do we think should be one of our tuners? Does anyone have any suggestions? We don't have to, but does anything come up for anyone? It's like, who should be a tuner for this? And the point, this is not a big fish. This is like, it's not some important role where you decide the future of everything. You're just kind of like an editor. You're taking this raw material and putting it into some workable ideas. And then it comes back to the next step after that will be a consent decision-making process where everyone comes back and actually processes this idea to come up with a, yes, let's go, to evolve the agreement to the point where we can say, yes, let's do this. So anyway, back to the question, who should be there?
So I'll just put a,
Go ahead, John.
Okay, I was just going to say we were looking at proposals before we did this, so we've done some thinking. So one option, and we obviously can be as many people as we want, and I've been speaking with Robin about this. So potentially, I would nominate Robin, myself, and then potentially Anne, or Mark, if Mark was interested, to take a first crack at a proposal based on some of the work we've already done.
Because I have special skills.
She
that I can
does.
dumb things down.
Robin essentially makes things real, so it's a good lens to bring into the proposal tuning.
Okay, I'm just putting a little sticky note that says Robin and JW or John, and then put your initials to say that was actually came from you.
Right. Yes.
Any other suggestions?
Also, clarification question.
Yes?
Could you potentially have two different groups work on parallel proposals, or is that unadvised? Just wondering how to.
So what I'm hearing there is that you may end up generating some really great, a range of possibilities. And then the question is, then what? Then, so we've got these two groups of tuners with two different proposals. And then we'd have to decide, how does the group want to handle those? Does the group want to just combine them afterwards? Or, so it's, nothing is, nothing's wrong. Like I can't say that is a bad thing, we won't do it, but we should be thinking about, is this consistent with the principles behind sociocracy? So is this pursuing efficiency? Is this pursuing I'm trying to think what else might we want to run that filter by. My personal feeling is that, considering that there's urgency, it's just adding an extra step. I'm going to say that I trust the work that's been done to say that one session of tuning is going to create a good enough, for now, safe to proceed solution.
Okay. Yeah, the only reason why I mention that is because we have some ideas, and I would love to see a totally fresh and different approach to see if there's anything that comes out of left field, but it's much less efficient, and so I'm more than happy to not do that. Just exploring the idea.
Keeping in mind that the tuners, there's no obligation that the tuners have to use.
That's a good point.
Anything that has just come, but the expectation is that they will have something that is a response to all the work that's been done up till now. So if that just means that the tuners are inspired to come up with a solution based on what's already there, that may happen too. I'm going to say in this particular instance, it would be pretty surprising if the tuners come up with something completely different, but also adequate in responding to the driver. But it's possible. But it would have to be justified and clear why that change of tack happened. Anyway, I hope that answers your question thoroughly enough. I'm going to go back to this question. Does anyone else have any other ideas about who should be in the group of tuners? Keeping in mind that 2 or 3 is where you want to be. 4 is too many. 2's enough. 3 is workable. 4 will fail.
Okay, well, as a volunteer to tip the balance and make it fail, I would really like to involve the process, even just as an observer, because we are attempting to go through this process concurrently in the constitutional working group. So somebody from that needs to observe this process in detail. So either Sarah or I. You've got Anne down there, who I think just came back on.
Yes.
So that's helpful, but
that's
I would like to at least observe it. I won't mess it up.
Okay, understood. Does there anyone else who has another idea about who should be there? We've had John suggesting Robin, Anne, and himself, and now we have Mark as an observer.
Yeah, Anne just came back, and we've now voluntold her that she's joining this committee.
Yeah,
John knows me well. He knows what I can help with, and so I appreciate that.
Okay.
No worries.
Is there anyone who wants to be there, who doesn't see their name there? Okay, I'm gonna just go right for checking for consent. Do we have consent for the tuners to be Robin, Anne, and John, with Mark as an observer? Any objections? Any concerns? I'm gonna put my thumb up to say I have no objections and I'm not concerned. Okay, then that's our second agreement. Yeah, we can celebrate.
More shots.
Then that concludes our first successful attempt.
It was pretty
Where's the
presumptuous,
badge, Michael?
right?
He
I
does. He needs another badge. We gotta, like this, he keeps earning badges.
okay. Yes, it was the first of 2 attempts, and the first one failed miserably, but it actually led us on the path to this event that happened today. So I'm incredibly grateful for everyone who stuck it out. I personally, well, okay, so this is what we're going to do now. End of the meeting, another S3 pattern, which is a closing retrospective. So I'm going to invite a round of reflection on this session that we had, and that can be things to celebrate, things that you appreciate, things you want to see more of in future meetings, or things you want to see less of, things we could do better, etc. So I started, so I'm going to just continue to say that I shared my learning earlier about how scope of driver really seems to have a direct impact on how much time is needed, particularly for that idea generating phase. But having said that, I'm going to call this a win, even if it's just a personal win. But thanks everyone. And I'll call on. I'm going to go around on my screen at John and then Robin.
Total win. Very impressed. One of our best first efforts at one of the complex S3 patterns. Very well navigated, Michael. And I normally work really hard to find constructive feedback, but honestly, I'm hard pressed to do so. Super impressed. Go us.
Thanks, John. Robin, and then Andrew.
I guess this is my first introduction. It's a bit overwhelming, but I'm glad that the working group that I'm working with or will be working with has some expertise to chunk things down, because I work better in smaller chunks, but I'm excited to do more.
Thanks, Robin. Andrew, and then Mark.
I thought it went really well. You did a great job of facilitating it and keeping us to a decent time schedule, Michael. Appreciate that. I wasn't sure where it was going to get to, so I was just kind of going along with it. But I think it did pull out a lot of really good stuff, and I'll be really interested to see what the tuners come up with in terms of boiling it down to practicalities.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Mark, and then Anne.
Yeah, so this is very positive for me. We're trying to learn as we're doing. Got another meeting tomorrow where we're going to be carrying on with this. We got to the prioritization stage after 2 hours over budget. But so this is very helpful, Michael, to hear you facilitate in the way that John expressed. And so thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Mark. Go ahead, Anne. I think you're going to close us out.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I missed the best part, but I'm looking forward to working with the small tuner team to see if I can help, get us to the next sort of pattern that will follow on from this. And certainly the first part of the meeting went very well, and hats off to Michael's planning for this as well as facilitation, because there was a lot of work he had to do to get this meeting to be as flawless as it was, and congratulations on that.
Thanks, Anne. So tuners, do you know what you need to do? I mean, I'll need to give you access to this Miro board. And I did put notes here. So proposal ingredients, you're going to bring in a driver, have the proposal text, clear action objectives, accountabilities, possible timelines, evaluation date, evaluation criteria. That's sort of an ideal.
Yep. Did you want to be involved in that, either as a observer or facilitator, just as part of the S3 experience building?